This is a video I made to show and explain how to improve a regular motorcycle for daily use. Commuting, getting groceries, running errands, taking it in and out of the garage, riding it short or long distances, but just general use. What most motorcyclists do to modify or improve their bikes, if they're inclined to do that type of work, is to make it go faster, or to make it sound better, or to make it look better, or to make it handle better, or to improve the performance in some way. This set of modifications and changes I've made to this motorcycle doesn't have anything to do with much of that. It has to do with just making it easier to live with and easier to use for commuting and everyday motorcycling. I hope you'll enjoy it. My name is Andy, and today I'd like to tell you a little story about this 1994 Honda XR650L motorcycle. I bought this motorcycle new in 1994. The first year it was made, this series model was made, intending to convert it to mostly street use. I wanted a lightweight, easy to handle bike, mostly for commuting. And I thought this would be a good bet. If you're looking for a bike you can ride for years and take care of, maintain, get to know for a long period of time, it's great to have a bike that has a long production run. Sometimes this is hard to predict at the beginning, but I lucked out with this particular Honda. Honda's been making them for 28 years, mostly unchanged. They're still making this bike today. I'd like to run through some of the changes and modifications I've made to make it better for my application, which is primarily errand running and transportation around town and commuting. Let's go from back to front. I wanted to take the turn signals, which were originally here, and put them here so that there would be less stuff sticking out for when I wanted to attach duffels and loads. A U-shaped piece of aluminum, took the stock turn signals, took the rubber flexible mount thing off, and mounted them here, and that's where they are, and that's where they've been ever since. I put a little piece of 3M reflective below the license plate. This piece here is a downturned exhaust accessory. I don't know if you can still get these. I don't remember the company that made them, but it's supposed to help the exhaust be quieter and less intrusive. This aluminum guard I fabricated myself. It was very fun to make. And again, if you're strapping loads on, or if somebody's a passenger or whatever, this just keeps the chance of hurting somebody or melting a nylon strap or a bag. It keeps it much less. The centerpiece of the back of the bike is this container. I'd like to show it to you and show you how it's made and what's in it. But before I do that, this wheel and tire is different. This is a wide wheel holding a sticky 17-inch street bike tire. The front wheel was also made differently. It's a 17-inch wide rim also. Both of these were made by a company in California called XL Rims. At the time, I thought it was incredibly expensive. The advantage of the sticky wide tires is how it handles and steers and works on the street. It's more fun to ride than it is with the 18 and 21-inch wheel and tire combination that the bike came with. The mistake I made is thinking that someday I'd want to turn this bike back into a dual-purpose bike, so I saved the 18 and 21-inch wheels with their almost unused knobby tires. They're still sitting in my garage, unused, 28 years later. I never went back to the other configuration. I could have saved a lot of money by using the hubs from the old stock wheels to lace up to these rims, but I was not confident that this was going to work, so I kept the wheels and I used hubs from a salvaged bike. The rest of this part of the bike on this side of the bike is pretty unchanged. You can see there's a little webbing loop here and a webbing loop here. I don't know if it's in camera. There's a webbing loop here and a webbing loop here. There's the same 4 webbing loops on the other side of the bike. These are helpful to strap different things on. The centerpiece of the back part of this bike is this thing here, this big container, and I'm going to focus on that now for a few minutes. It was made by a company called Chase Harper Luggage. The owner of Chase Harper and I became friends. He had an XR650L also. You can see it has a diagonal arrangement of bungee cords across the top. It makes it very easy to just strap something on. I'll show you what this thing is in a minute. But first, this is a rain cover that I made out of some waterproof fabric. And the reason I made it is because when this bike sits outdoors in the rain, I'll show you in a second. Water comes in this zipper that rain falls on it, water gets in the zipper, and water gets into the inside. It's held in place by 4 little mini bungees to these pins, and on the other side of each one of these pins is a pool of, I don't know, some sort of glue or resin that's dried hard, so the pins don't flex around. This piece was made out of a molded foam material. I don't think this is available anymore, but if you want to use a bike every day, it's important to be able to carry an inner tube and some other stuff. I'll go through what's in here in just a moment. It's a locking space. There's a key on this. There's a unlocking thing on this side. It's a helmet holder, and you zip around like this, and it comes open. As you can see, there's the owner's manual, there's an Allen wrench, a tire gauge, a little pouch. I don't even remember what some of this stuff is. I put this all together so many years ago that a lot of these modifications are very old. Let's see what's in the pouch. Kind of curious myself. A spare master link. Piece of wire. Some adhesive Velcro, some zip ties. A little tiny rag. A quarter, a cotter pin. This is a light bulb for something. Oh, it's for a high intensity tail light that's on this bike. A flashing high intensity tail light. And I actually think there's several master links in here. Let's put this back together now. Put it back in its little home. One of the reasons that this kit is part of this bike is, even though I built it for commuting, in 2001 I decided to take it to California with a duffel bag on the back with some clothes and some food, no stove. But I wanted to see if it was possible to travel on a pretty lightweight bike on a long trip. So I took a probably 10-day trip to Los Angeles and back here to Minnesota. Let's see. Paper rag from a gas station, shop towel. This is an accessory we sell from Chase Harper. It's a helmet holder. It's a mesh, sort of a bra for the helmet with bungee cords so you can carry an extra helmet if you want. This is an axle wrench designed to work by sliding a tire iron into the wrench. This is a mini toolkit and socket set. We sell the basic kit here. I've added a couple of sockets that fit a lot of the fittings and nuts and bolts on this bike. And it's just a repair kit. If you want to do something, this is again probably more for that trip to California than for daily commuting. But it's a neat little kit, and I added a couple of sockets to it. This is a emergency tire repair kit with CO2 inflator, tire patch materials, glue, and this is a bicycle tire pump. And so that makes two methods of fixing a tire, one with the tire repair kit and the patch kit, and if the CO2 doesn't do it, then I've got a tire pump. In addition, down in the bottom of this, there's an inner tube, but we're not there yet. Another thing, this is a multimeter, some glue sticks, a little light for at night. I don't know if it works or not. Yeah, it still glows. It's a little, like a trouble light thing. These are mechanic shop gloves, so that if you want to handle a dirty chain in the middle of a trip, you don't have to wreck your hands with the grease from the chain. I guess just more stuff to service and work on the bike. Let's see what this is. I don't even remember. I think this is chain lube. I'm almost positive it's chain lube. It's chain lube in a double Ziploc bag inside of a nylon bag. I remember this leaked once, and that's why it's all super secure. This is a tow strap. This is another cinching strap. Instead of a bungee, you can put something under here and strap it down. This is the toolkit that came with the Honda. It's a tool roll with all the Honda's factory service tools in a Chase Harper Cordura bag. These are a couple of tire irons. There's bulbs for the bike in here, various kinds of bulbs, probably now obsolete. I've changed to an LED headlight. This is the inner tube for the bike. It'll go in either tire. This is a kind of a jack thing. Should you want to have the bike like on a center stand, and this bike doesn't have a center stand, you can use this thing with this combination with the side stand to have it be a center stand. Just a way of propping a bike up if you need it propped up. Well, I think those are the high points of this little toolkit. Unfortunately, this heavy thing, the toolkit, the wrenches from the Honda toolkit are all the way at the back end of this thing, which means that it's a little heavier at the back than at the front. I don't know if it'll fit in the front or not. I think I'll try to put it in the front because it's super heavy. And it would be better up in the front if I can make it fit. We'll find out. It's going to be kind of a miracle, a small miracle, if I can fit all this junk back in here again. Looks like I'm going to be able to. Well, maybe I spoke too soon. We'll find out. I think we're going to be good. This kit locks with this little cable thing that goes into the helmet lock. that's part of the original Honda. There used to be an orange little tool bag here, and as you can see, this is a much expanded version of that. The orange tool bag was a factory fitting on this bike, and for my use, it's now much larger. As you can tell by my unfamiliarity with it, I don't get in it very often. But it was fun to make it, fun to build it. And basically, if I do want to go on a long trip, I was pretty much ready to go. I'd probably go through it a little more carefully to make sure the tire patches are fresh and that sort of thing. I'm going to check after I put this back together and see if the recording is still recording. As I said earlier, this just keeps rain out of the zipper. I think I'll show you this thing next. First, let me put this back. It's a lot of fiddling around. This is an adjustable bungee. You can put as many hooks as you want on this one long bungee cord. Aerostich sells these. And it makes a nice way to carry stuff. That's one of about 4 different ways to carry stuff. Let me show you how this thing works. It's one of my favorite accessories. It's a lock for the throttle and the front brake. There's a bunch of these. They're popular all over the world, but not much in the United States. What is great is that they're very lightweight. They're easy and fast to use compared to a disc lock or a chain through a wheel. They're not as secure as those methods, but they are some security for a sort of a light application. They're very simple to use. You put them over the fork, you close them, press a button. This one beeps because this one has a motion detecting alarm. Now if I wiggle the bike, it should, there it goes. Now to turn it on, it's not much of a deterrent, as I said, but it's easy to use. So if you don't want, the nice thing about these is that when you use something that people aren't familiar with, unless it's a professional bike thief, they're not going to be familiar with this. A vandal or an opportunistic person wanting to bother your motorcycle won't recognize this. They won't know what it is. It's not obvious that like a chain. So it's easy to carry, easy to use, and it's a sort of low-level deterrent for mischief makers. In my case, it attaches to the back of the bike. I'll show you how I carry it. All I do to carry this is put the bungee cords through here, one through here, close it, lock it, and the double beep means that it's not going to make noise if the bike moves. That's the storage signal. A single beep means it's armed, double beep means it's not armed. So it's right there whenever I need it for temporary security. Here's some of the changes that I made on the front part of this bike. Again, nothing spectacular. The handlebars were narrowed by about 1 inch on either end. There's an aluminum end piece on each end. I think it's from a bicycle that expands. This means you can lean it up against a wall by the end of the handlebar without wrecking the grip. This is an old-fashioned store-away. You can, I don't know if, again, these are still made. They're very old, but you can put your mirror away to adapt this to the Honda mirror. It still has the same Honda vibration dampener I cut the mirror stem, welded it back together straight, and it's my rear view mirror. Here is a time, temperature, barometric pressure, altitude wristwatch. The piece that I've strapped it to is actually made out of an old chunk of a hockey puck, carved with a motor grinder to allow me to mount it here. This is this is an electric outlet when the key is on, where I can power something. It's one of a couple on this bike, but sometimes I have something that I want to power up here. This is a very old little Garmin GPS, which really for commuting I don't use. I used it on my trip on this bike to the West Coast. It just is what it is. It's an old GPS. Down here is where the dipstick is for the bike, and I have an aftermarket one from a company called XR's Only, which tells the temperature of the oil. Normally this gas cap would have a vent hose going into the center of the steering head. There's an accessory you can buy which you screw into where the vent hose normally would be, and allows the gas, allows the tank to be vented. And there's a reason that I did this, which I'll show you in a moment. Up here is a Aerostich lightweight messenger. We call this a lightweight portable bag. It's just a bag with drawstrings that can form backpack straps. It's a way to carry stuff on the bike. Let's see. This is a switch for the electric grips, which I put on this bike. This is you can put a cell phone, you can put a radar detector, you can do whatever you want with this. It's just a mounting platform with molded hook and loop or molded Velcro. I screwed it to the mounting point off center, kind of homemade fabrication. This is a throttle friction lock that holds the throttle where I want it. The unusual part about it is instead of a set screw, which requires a screwdriver, I got a longer screw and put a piece of fuel tubing around it, and now I can adjust the tension exactly if it's too much or too little. So I have just enough to hold the throttle, but not enough to fatigue on a long day. You can see when I mounted the electric grips, I put plugs on them so that the handle grips can come off pretty easily, these electric plugs. There's one other accessory I'll show you on the front, and the trickiest part on this bike is just below the speedometer. I had the suspension on this bike made shorter. When I built the bike with the little wheels, took the shocks off, took the fork off, and took the fork legs off, sent the forks and the shock to a tuning place in California. I can't remember which one, but I made the shock and spring slightly shorter, and I made the forks slightly shorter, so this bike sits about 1.5 inches shorter than the normal XR650L. And because it has the small diameter front wheel and back wheel, but the front wheel, the speedometer is a mechanical speedometer with a speedometer cable. And at the time I built this bike to be this commuter on these little wheels, there was a guy in Switzerland who was making little gearboxes to go just below where the speedometer cable fits into the speedometer that correct for the small diameter front wheel. So this has one of this guy's little gearboxes underneath the speedometer, and of course a shorter speedometer cable to match. The other thing, I've got to move the camera to show it to you. If I turn the bike on, you'll see it. See the little voltage gauge here. That is just a voltage gauge, and what's cool about it is that when you touch the brake light, it drops 1/10 of a volt, so you know the brake light is working. I guess that's it. The throttle lock, the electric grips, this platform thing, the old GPS, the watch. This is a close-up of these bar-end things that allow me to lean the bike against something. Let's see if I can show you. The front turn signals were mounted. The front turn signals were, like the back ones, were moved directly against the headlights. Originally, they came on a bracket here and stuck out and were kind of in the way, and I wanted them out of the way here. Let's see, what else did I do? This has a bigger gas tank, so I don't have to go to the gas station as much. The engine tune is stock. The foam in the saddle is much harder. You can buy from aftermarket companies different densities of foam for the, and this is the stock saddle cover, but with a much harder foam on the inside. Let's see, what else was I going to show in the front? Just last year I put a LED headlight on. In the front, as you can see, there's a big disc. I had a problem with the caliper. It did not want to come off with this wide, small wheel on it. And I don't know if you can see it here, but the back side of the, see where the shoulder of this is kind of square? The ones on the back side I filed rounded, so it just barely clears, so I can get the front wheel off with this big diameter disc. There is two other things to show on the front of this bike. This deal here hooks onto here and mounts like this, and there's hook and loop behind here, and this gives you a sort of like a tank bag thing, and in here is sunglasses and the type of stuff you'd normally have in a tank bag, earplugs, and this was set up for that California trip. I haven't used this thing since that California trip, but you can see there's sealant on the tape for the zipper to keep as much water out of it as possible. Sunglasses, side stand plate for soft ground, a silk scarf, rain glove covers, face shield cleaning materials, a hat, just stuff you would use if you're traveling all day on a lightweight bike that you'd want to get access to. And for navigation, this was built all before everybody had a smartphone. This is a map case. The reason I took the cover off of the vent hose off of here is so that I could run this map case. Clips on here, has a map, and it actually does more. I don't use this feature of it, but it unfolds to hold a giant map if you want it to. There we go. So there's a little space in here with a pen and some extra earplugs. There's a fuse for the bike in here. I believe it unfolds even further. So you could have a giant map in here should you want one. Again, before people all had smartphones. One thing about this map case thing, I like to use a grease pencil on maps or on the map case, and this is actually a little grease pencil which you can draw on and rub it off. It's just a handy way to write on either a paper map or on the window of a map case. This product is made by a company, or used to be made by a company called Psychoactive, which still exists. They're now the Touratech distributor in the United States, but it's a neat little map case. Both of these items have not been used on this bike since 2001, but I still have them. I think that's about it on the front. There's one thing maybe that you didn't see, which is this wire here is for my heated vest. And I think that's about everything on the dash of this bike. I want to show you a couple of things from the other side of the bike. This is a smaller rear sprocket. This chain guard had to be modified to clear around the wider tire. This little piece of aluminum here reinforces it from flopping around. The front sprocket, I think, is a tooth larger, and the rear sprocket is a 41 tooth, and I can't remember what the stock size is, but it's now geared a little taller. The side stand I cut and shortened to match the shorter suspension. Normally there's a safety interlock wire switch here, and another one on the clutch. Those have been removed to simplify the wiring, and it's one less thing go wrong. There's another thing I'm going to try and show you here. It's a little bit hard to see. I want to show you this thing here. It's a flexible bulb with a tiny hose to it and a tiny hose from it. One hose, this is the reservoir for the gas shock, but mounted back here is a bottle about this exact size, and this is, you ride along and you push this in, this rubber bulb, and it sends a shot of oil down to the chain right where it comes off the countershaft sprocket. So it's a chain loop system that you can use while you're going. If you ride through a bunch of rain or something and you want to lubricate your chain, a shot or two of this will do it. I also forgot to point out on the other video, this is a spacer that relocates the front brake caliper out so you can use a big diameter caliper. As I pointed out in the last section, these square edges, I had to file a little bit rounder to clear this so that the wheel can easily come off. I guess that's about everything on my old Honda XR650L. It's been a pretty good bike. It's on its second piston. Earlier this year I had to take a side cover off the engine and replace an ignition triggering device. But other than that, it's just been running all these years. Makes a great commuter. These are pretty inexpensive bikes, especially secondhand. But if you lower them, and they're not very powerful, but they will do a wheelie, they will do a stoppie, and they're pretty fun to ride, just like almost every other motorcycle. Easy to handle, light, simple. I actually think that's just about everything about the bike. This is my bike, an old Honda XR650L. Thanks for watching.